everybody, it's Denise again. So this is part 2 of how we're going to use our needles, our thread with certain leathers. Okay, so I'm switching out to a white because I want to make sure that you all can see this. Okay, so let me switch out my thread. So I'm just going to tie a knot in there because I do not thread the machine manually. Okay, that's another user error. If you don't know how to use this machine and you keep rethreading, oh, let me tell you, you change my thread constantly throughout the day, and the last thing I want to do is spend a total of half an hour between all machines changing out thread. Not doing it, okay? So I have a white Tex 70 in here. And I just ran the thread through the machine, and I'm going to put it through my bobbin. Okay. Perfect. And I grab a hold of the thread. So this is all stuff that we know how to do already. So I'm not going to spend much focus on that because we know that. So that is in. So I'm going to grab my thread. And when I have the loop, I grab it. Okay, my thread's out now. So the needle that I have in here right now is an Oregon. It's a 135 by 16 RTW. Okay. And your RTW it's a right twist, has a wedge point. Okay. And I like using that with a 70, with a 100, or a 135. Works well for me. So let's go through the leathers here. I have 2 chromes. Here's one. This is a really pretty one. I did a quilted bag for this. And here's another chrome. This one's a little flimsy. These are pretty much the same thickness. I actually tested the thickness with these on a digital thickness gauge, and I have one here that I bought on Amazon. You don't need one of these, but I like testing it because you can kind of see what your thickness is, and I take notes on a lot of my patterns that I make. I have pages of notes and pictures and so forth. So this is approximately a 1.7 millimeter. Let me get this out of the way. So these two are roughly the same. So the 1.7, this is probably a 1.6. So figure this is a 3 to 4 ounce chrome, okay? Then I have my suede, and my suede thickness, I measured that. That was a 1.6, so that's approximately a 4 ounce. Now, this is one of my favorites. I love making handles with these on bags. It just kind of bougies it up a little bit. It makes it a little bit more special. This bison is pretty thick. I measured this one at 3.3 millimeters. So it's approximately 3.3 is probably between an 8 and a 9 ounce, okay? So we're using white thread so you can see the difference. So it's a Tex 70. Let's go ahead and use the thinnest. This is a chrome, but it's the thinnest. Now, I'm not going in close on showing you how I'm doing this. I want you to see it as a whole. I want you to see my foot. I use my right foot. You can use whatever foot you want. I drive a car, so I have a habit of using the go pedal, which is on my right side. So I use that. I tend to like long threads when I start. And maybe that's why, because I don't tend to always hold. So if I'm going to bring it down, I just do it by hand. So now I'm ready to go. And I slowly I can feel a little hum in there. So I give it a little pull on my wheel. And here I'm going. Okay. She's going nice and slow. I can step it up a little bit. Okay, bring it up, release the needle. I pull outward I don't pull to the front. I just pull in the same direction every single time. So, okay, there's a little oil on there. I oiled her last night. Not a big deal because this is a test watch. So there you can see that was the Tech 70. And this is with a RTW leather needle size 20. Okay. That's not bad. So let's do it on the purple chrome. Let's see what that looks like. So even if you put your finger on it, that will work too. That looks good. I like that. Now I have the stitch length right past 4 slightly. Top and bottom. I very, very seldom have I moved this dial. If I move it, it's like just a little bit. That's all. I'm not going to turn it one way for a ton of rotations or the other way. Don't have to. Okay, now we're going to use our suede. Now let's see what the suede looks like. I mean, when you think about it, that's how slow she can go when you don't need to, see, you can see when I'm pushing down on the pedal, I'm using my toes to feel the machine. So that looks good too. That's the top and that's your bottom. Okay. Now we're going to use the bison. Now the bison is probably not something I want to use a tiny stitch for. I'm going to actually lay that right on the side as if it was a handle. So I'm going to step that up to a 5. When I changed the dial on my stitch length, I press down my reverse lever because it makes it a lot easier. Now you can do it if you have a lot of muscle, which I'm going to do it this way. It just releases this area in here and it makes it really easy. So let's put this on a 6 and let's see what it looks like. I still have the same needle in there, the 20, okay, the RTW, and I still have my Tech 70, okay? So nothing has changed except that I'm using a thick bison. Now, this particular needle that I have in here is not a new needle. I've had it in for a few projects, and it still works fine. That's your top, and there's your bottom. What's nice with this machine, a lot of times, if I was doing the top of a bag, I can actually sew it from the inside out. And look at that, I get the same results. It's not like you can tell what the top and the bottom is of the thread. You know, well, okay, you can, but this does not look horribly bad. If for any reason you didn't have a cylinder machine, like I have the Cobra Class 26, so I can take my bag project over there and let it hang over the cylinder to do the outside. But if you had to lay the bag on the inside, this is not bad, okay? So that is my thickness of a 70. So let's keep everything the way it is. We'll move the stitch length back down. We'll go back through each different piece of leather and let's change out the thread on this and then we'll see what that looks like. So I'm going to use a bright pink. I think that will show up well. It should show up on the suede. So let's thread that one. So we have a Tech 70. Take it out of the needle. put your knee on the knee pad down here. You want to make sure your foot is up because otherwise it will not pull through. Okay, so we will change out this one, and we are also going to change out the bottom. Okay, I am not one to have different thicknesses in top and bottom. I just go through, you know, keep it simple. There's no need for me to have a thicker thread on top, a thinner thread on the bottom. I just don't see the use of that, not for what I do, okay? So I'm trying to keep things simple. So, changed out the bobbin. We have both the same top and bottom, okay? Like I said, it's a Tex 100. So let's go through the chrome again. Now I got my finger on the pink. I'm holding the pink thread, and here we go. Now I have a really big stitch length because the last thing I sewed was the bison. So I'm going to come back to the front. I'm going to turn my work around. I'm going to change it to a 4 because that's what we had before. Right after the 4, there we go. So I want to show you what that looks like compared to the white, and you'll see the thread difference. Went down one more time, so let's do that. Okay. So here's a bigger stitch, and here's the other one. You can see the twist in how it's cutting through the leather. There's the back, okay? So let's go on to the purple chrome, and we'll see what that looks like. Now, I had a little twist in my thread here, and there we go. See how it kind of twisted itself? It's okay. I must have twisted something as I was going, so you just take it out of the needle, you cut it, and you put it back in. Not a big deal. It happens to everybody. There we go. Now, I don't like sewing with the thread on top. I like it through the hole. I know I feel like sometimes I'm repeating myself, but if you're watching this for the first time, there's a video that I show on that I don't like. I don't like having the needle, the thread on top. I like it on the bottom because using a leather needle, if you sew it with it being on top, a lot of times it gets cut as it goes through, and then you have all these pieces of thread that you've sewn on because it was hanging, because it wasn't out of the way of the stitching, okay? So let's do the purple one. That's the next chrome. Here we go. Going really slow. That's a 4. Now let's do a 5. I wonder if a 5 would be prettier. If this was a bag that I was doing, I'll do a 5. And see what I mean about test swatches? You can really get an idea of what it's gonna look like, okay? Now, yeah, I'm only using 1 layer. We could use 2 layers too, but here. So that's your 4. And this here is your 5. Look how pretty that looks. I think that is just gorgeous. Okay, let's do the suede. I don't know if this will show up on the suede as well. Probably not. But, and you can go back. You can go forward. Let's see. It didn't show up quite as well. That's not bad. Let's do the bison. I always love sewing the thick ones because it looks so pretty with certain different types of needles that when they slice the leather, it just has a really nice finish. Now I'm right next to the original one. It's at a 5, right next to the original seam. There you go. Now see how different that looks? Okay, it's a little darker and it's a little smaller, okay? But I think if you were gonna use something this thick, I think an in-between stitch would be perfect. That's a choice. That is all a choice. Nobody's telling you what to do. Everything's suggested. So that was that thread. Now we're gonna jump to a 135, which I love a 135 because it's a little beefier. If you're using multiple layers, it looks really nice, has a nice finish. So we'll do that. Okay, I have a bobbin ready to go on that one. Take your thread out of the needle. Keep your foot on the edge, and there you go. And you get that foot up because otherwise nothing will move. Now, same needle, same size 20 with the twist. I'll get rid of this one, and we will put the same in the bobbin. Now this is probably, I think this is my max that I would do on this machine. I'm good with how things look with this one. I'll bring up my loop. There it is. Pull it through. There we go. Now, let's go ahead and use the green, and I'll show you what the 135 with a 135 by 16 RTW. It's a right twist. And I have it on a 5. Now, I have nothing added to my machine. I don't have anything attached to it where it stops down or up. I don't have a speed control. I don't have any of that stuff. This is a straight up pure Juki, no attachments. So this will give you an idea of what she can do. So when I sew, I've gotten the feel of it. I can sew, and where my foot is, I know when I go up and I know when I go down. Like when I'm done with the project or I need to move something, I make sure my needle's down. Well, I can do that with my foot. Sometimes I have to put my hand on the wheel and I go that way, but it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. You'll get the hang of it. So let's go, just for giggles, let's go down to a 3.5 and see what this looks like, okay? Now I'm gonna help it along a little bit, and you can see my foot. I'm right on the upper edge of that foot pedal. I'm not down here. Down here I have no control. I let my heel rest on the pedal, and I'm pretty much just using my toes. I can, my upper part of my foot, my pad, is what I'm using because I can feel, I can slow down or I can go really fast. So. Yeah, that doesn't look as pretty the smaller you get. So here. Now look at that. See the difference? Now you can see the twisting that it does. It goes like that. So this actually, this right here, looks like you hand stitch it. When I hand stitch a bag, that's what it looks like. It goes all one direction from the bottom up, bottom up. You can see that in there. It's not going straight. So let's do the purple one. Well, purple one we won't be able to see much, but we'll see what it looks like color on color. It's very pretty. Too small again. Not bad. Not bad. I'm trying to think what I used for my leather bag that I made. I will show you. This one has been quilted, and I had put beads in between it. So you can see on this bag, I think you can see the stitching. I'm not sure, because I wanted it tone on tone. I wanted the beads to pop in the intersections of where the diamonds are. Okay, so that's kind of where I wanted this to be. So that was a fun project to do. Quilting, when you do color on color, it's so much easier than doing a color that is opposite of the project. You better be really good and be wide awake to do that project. I'm telling you. There are times I've taken stuff and I've tossed it because I just wasn't with it. So you got to have that day where it's a really good day. Okay, so we're still with the 135. We still have the size 20 needle, the 125-20, and it's the 135 by 16 RTW, okay? This is on suede. And do you see, I have changed nothing on the tension. Do you see how simple that is? I've changed thread. I've changed thicknesses of leather. The needle has still been the same, but I have not changed anything, okay? So this is between a 4 and a 5. This may be a little difficult to see. That is a little difficult. I am going to do, the last one is going to be the bison. One of my favorites, so I love this one. So this one, I will hold my thread and I will actually move the first needle in because you can feel it going through that layer. It's a little bit denser when that needle goes through. And I just want to get a feel for it because then the next few stitches, it kind of seems to go easier. You get the feel for it. You have to become the machine. You've got to be able to feel how it's sewing. I have no other way of explaining it. I know that may sound silly, but you will have less problems when you understand the machine and you become the machine. Oh, makes me want to get out all my bison and sew bison today. I might have to do a bag today in bison. So, wow, that looks really sharp. That does. Okay, so we've tackled all of that with that particular needle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep this thread in since we have it, but I'm going to switch out my needle, okay? I'm going to take this out, and there we go. What I do with all my needles, this is still a good needle. I'm not going to throw this away. I'm going to put this up here. I have a little electrical tape. Any of you all that know me know I love my electrical tape. I do. So now I'm using the 135 by 16 DIA. So the DIA is a diamond tip, okay? So let's see how different that looks versus the other one that we used. We're doing all 20s, all 20 needles, on this one. I am not switching out different size needles. We're sticking with 20. We're just working on the tip. Okay, first rule of thumb, when you look at your needle, your scarf, this little indent, the little indent on your needle, that's called a scarf. That goes towards the machine to your right. The easy way I thread it is I put my thread in there, and then I put my needle up, and I get it just where I want it. I use my fingernail to hold it, and then I tighten it down. Okay, that way there's no movement, nothing, because you can feel that needle. Sometimes it does turn when you put it in and you're holding it by hand, but when you do it by thread, it doesn't turn, okay? So there's also, I do have a video of that on YouTube. You can see how I do that. So now I'm going to pull out my thread. There it is. Okay. So stay organized, get all your stuff, get your phones, everything off of the machine. Nothing needs to be around. Buy yourself a tripod. Do yourself a favor. If you need to have a phone on or next to you, go ahead and buy yourself a tripod. So now we have a different needle. We have the diamond needle, okay? I'm going to leave the same thickness and we're going to sew it right next to the purple that we had. That was the twist, the diamond or the twist organ leather needle. So let's see how different that looks. So again, I'm right at the edge of my foot pedal. Yeah, it shows a big difference. So you will see this looks like a hand stitch, and this one is more straight. You see that? And look how pretty the back is. It's perfect. I'm going to skip the suede only because you can't really see it. Let's go to the chrome leather. I think most of everybody I'm thinking chrome. I do love chrome leather. You can do a lot with chrome. So I think the majority of you all would probably use chrome. So I have this between a 4 and a 5. This is a 135 thickness of thread in here. And we've got the diamond needle. That's beautiful too. There's nothing wrong with that one either. But do you see how it's more straight? Okay. Where this one is, it does a twist. See how it goes that way? So you see the difference. Okay. Let's keep the same needle in, and we're going to go down now in thread colors. Okay. We're going to go back down to the pink. We'll get that put in. Make my knot. Do you see what I mean about doing so many changes of thread? I'm telling you, you could go crazy. I do switch out my thread. I like a lot of my things. I have a classic look. I want, like my lining, if I use a lighter lining or a solid lining, I want to have that match versus if I use a crazy color on the outside of the bag, I may not use that on the inside. So that's why I switch a lot back and forth. So this is my pink. I'll throw that in there. And so now I'm going to do my bobbin. I'm going to bring my thread up. There's my loop. Okay, that didn't take long at all. So let's do our diamond, okay? I'm going to put my fingers on the pink, hold the thread. So when you switch out your needles, that's probably the biggest part where people have another issue is, just error. You're not putting the scarf in the right way because your hook will not pick up that thread. Okay, I've got a 4.5. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger so you can kind of see the difference. So I'm between a 5 and a 6. So let's call it a 5.5. Okay. All right. That's really big and it's not really pretty. Okay. A lot of times those bigger stitches aren't really that pretty, but I want you to see the difference. So that's more of a 4 and that's between a 5 and a 6. So it's a 5.5. So you can see. Now look at the leather. I have not changed my tension at all with any needles, any threads. Do you see how that has become nice. It's not impossible. You don't really need to touch all of that up here because this works out just fine. Let me do the purple. This is going to be another one that's tough to see. That's a big stitch. Okay, we can work with that. I'm going to come back, do 2 stitches that way. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Let's bring it down to right after a 4, because that's what we've done all the others on. Yeah, see, I don't like the 4 at all, but I think the 5.5 is almost too big. So I would probably have this closer to a 4.5. Do you see the difference? So that is my 4. That doesn't look real pretty. That is not bad though. The bigger stitch, that is really not bad. But again, there is no tension change in any of this. Nothing, okay? Let me skip to the white, since the white is one that I use most often, and that's a Tech 70. So we're going very, very thin to me on this machine, but I like using a 70. Change it out one more time. Take it out of the needle. Get your foot, your knee on the side, lift that foot, and pull it through. Okay, here we go. Take out the bobbin. Gotta lift your foot. I'm all tangled with thread. Okay, we're gonna get rid of the pink. We're going to a Tex 70 top and bottom. Gonna put the thread in my bobbin. And get it in there. I'm gonna put my needle down. Wait for that loop. There it is. Grab the loop. There's my thread. Okay. So this one you'll definitely be able to see the difference. So let's do the green. Okay. Let me cut some of these threads off. Okay. All right. So this is right after a 4 on my stitch length. We have a Tech 70 top and bottom, and we've got our size 20 needle in here, okay? I like this one. Now you'll be able to see why I like my Tech 70. Look at that, how pretty that looks. It could be a little bit bigger. That's the bottom, and this is the top. So now you can see we've gone from a Tech 70. Here you can tell by the thread, there's the 135. There is very little change that you see in how the leather looks. It's not puckering, it's not pulling, nothing. It's ready to go. Let's do it on this chrome. This chrome is maybe just a hairline bigger than the green. This chrome right here is just a little flimsier. That's a right after a 4. Make sure your needle is at the top before you pull out. Now, see, that turned out really pretty too. See what I talk about? We want to make sure. I should have cut all these threads, so that came in from the other side, but you get the idea. That's the bottom, and here's your top. Okay, let's do this thick bison. with a Tex 170. Let me get rid of some of this thread. This will be a Tex 70 with a size 20 needle, a diamond tip. Okay, top and bottom threads are the same. And it does a 70 quite well. On the handles, and I've done some handles where I've used the 135 just because I want it to look a little bit more, I don't know the word. I don't want to call it masculine. I just want it beefier. But there's your Tex 70 on a bison. Okay? That is not bad. And that's pretty thick. I mean, that's an 8 to 9 ounce on this machine. So what I want to do now is I'm going to take this and just fold it in half. Because most likely you're going to have these either 2 or 3 layers. At least 2 layers. I would think if you're sewing a bag, maybe 3 layers if you're folding it over and tucking it in. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So I start slow and then I go. And 2 layers at 4.5. I'm going to go down 2. Well, let me go 1 more. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's take it to a 5, a straight up 5. Okay? So here you go. Look how pretty that looks. Top and the bottom does not look bad either. Let me do the purple one. That looks pretty too. So that's at a 5, 2 layers with a size 20 needle. It's the 135 by 16 diamond, DIA for diamond. And we've got 70 top and bottom in the thread. So that does not look bad. So with all of this, I'm hoping that you were able to see that you really don't have to mess with the tension. Try not to mess with it too much because you really don't have to. Now, if I'm stepping into something thicker than this, which I have not tried on this machine, I don't think I need anything thicker than a 135. A 135 is pretty. So I'm not going to invest in anything bigger than that. I have a couple of other thicknesses that I use on my Cobra Class 26 just because she can handle thicknesses better. She's a real beefy one. So like I said, hopefully this all worked out for you. If you have any questions, do let me know. So we used the 135 by 16 RTW, which is the right twist. It has a right twist point. It's like a wedge, okay? And then the DIA, the same one, the DIA is the diamond. So these are 125/20, okay? Those are those needles. So a rule of thumb is the 135 by 16 by 17, they're interchangeable. I'll use the 16 and I'll use the 17, okay? They're interchangeable. Now, just keep in mind that the 135/16, that's going to be your leather, And what I do when I get them in, I put leather next to it, because a lot of times I have needles for different machines, but what I do is I put mine in baggies. So I know this needle that I have in here, I'm going to switch back to my twist. So when I put, whoops, there goes my needle. When I put my needle into my machine, I put my baggie and I hang it up where my threads are. So I know that this is the needle that I have in there at the moment. Not that I have to get a magnifying glass out to read the needle, okay? So that's a good habit to get into. Other than that, that hopefully helps you. If you have any questions or any comments, or you want to see something else, I'll be happy to show you something else, a little trickier, maybe something that you're kind of questioning that you'd rather have me try before you try it. That's fine too. Let me know. You can email me. You can send me a message through YouTube. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And, well, hopefully this has helped you in some way of buying the right kind of leather, the right kind of thread, and the right kind of needles.